All right. Hello, beautiful people. Just wanted to say that. I don't know. And there's this YouTuber actually who I enjoy his reactions a lot. He's like a reactor kind of, and he always opens his like, "Hello, my beautiful people," which is like, I can't get that sort of enthusiasm out of me. I'm too mellow. So, anyways, yeah, hello, beautiful people. Anyways, so today is December the 9th, 2023, and this is 6:52 p.m. So, I'm late again today. I wanted to do it in the morning, but I was too occupied with the run, and then I came back, and one thing led to the other, and I'm here at the end of the day before I go to bed. Anyways, so yeah, it's about between 7, so I'll keep this short. Anyways, I was actually watching a great podcast last night and I fell asleep while listening to it, and then I woke up today, and today throughout the day I actually listened to it twice because it's so good. And like, so this is like the podcast I was listening to was oh, great. I actually looked up her name just now. Let me get her name. She's, it's on Diary of a CEO podcast. It's Stephen Bartlett. And what was the podcast? What was that? I believe it was. So this podcast was about relationships. She is Esther Perel. Yeah, Esther Perel. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Anyways, Esther Perel, she's a couple therapist, some relationship therapist. I believe she's a psychologist, and she's been doing that therapy work for 40 years, which is amazing. Any of you guys who know me know that like the reason I'm working on everything I'm working on, this stuff as well, is because I've always found it cool when people have something they've been doing for a long time. Honestly, it doesn't need to be anything impressive. It's like, obviously nothing like I've been brushing for 40 years, which would be like, a bit too much, but like any skill set, I've been, in my case, I want to have that, like, I've been running for, I don't know, my whole life, 40 years, 50 years. Anyways, off the tangent, yeah, so just her saying that line in the introduction of the podcast impressed me already. All right, I'm easy to impress that way. So anyways, so she wasn't saying anything like, out of the ordinary, but she just was dissecting things in such a clever way that it was impressive, I guess. Or at least I haven't heard it from anyone yet. The way she was dissecting it, the relationship and couple stuff so nicely. And like many of them are basic stuff which we all know, but it's just, we don't usually put it into words like how she did and the way she explained it. So like the most impressive one that kind of blew my mind is actually, I forgot the exact line. Honestly, I'll probably talk about this tomorrow again because I'll probably listen to it again while I'm, getting ready for bed, because it's like, I don't know, I really like this episode. I usually do that with all podcasts. I listen to them at least, like the first time I'll just listen to it. Second time I'll try to, read a bit more depth to it. The third and fourth time I'll take notes, and the fifth time I'll do it again. So like I do watch the same podcast episode at least 3 or 4 times often. Like with some, the ones I like, I will probably go like 6 or 7 times, and I try to break down and learn stuff, and many of them I put into use immediately in my daily life. That's what I've started to do, and it really makes a difference, right? Even this video thing, this YouTube, everything honestly originated from podcasts. So like I owe a lot to all these podcasters, and it all started with Jordan Peterson. There's David Goggins, there's Andrew Huberman, then my recent, favorite person I follow on podcasting this whole community is like Stephen Bartlett from, I believe it's Bartlett. I think it's Bartlett. So Diary of a CEO podcast. It's just really well done, and I like how he speaks, I guess. And he asks really good questions. He knows how to time his questions right, and the mood of the podcast. He sets it very. He's very good at what he does, basically. So, anyways, so Esther Perel, she the best part was like how she spoke about like how relationships are like an eight figure. So like what you do and how you behave, it could be the aura you're giving off, or it could be just your face, which we often, at least in my case, I often don't like stay very self-aware of the expression I'm making when I'm speaking to someone. And then oftentimes when I get a bad reaction, the first thought in my head is like, okay, they're in a bad mood or whatever. And I don't usually first go to maybe the face I was making was wrong on all that stuff. So like what she spoke about, the eight figure like impact, basically what you do generates the kind of reaction from them, from whoever person you're speaking to, and then their reaction generates another kind of reaction from you, and it goes back and forth, right? So basically your interaction and the kind of experiences you have with people around you, your loved ones, your friends and stuff like that, are basically, it's a two-way street. Like it's just not them. It's not like if you're talking about faults, it's not just their fault, it's your fault as well. And if we're talking about like influence, both way, it's a two-way street. So like the dynamics you have with them, with that person, that current dynamic you have determines the kind of experience you have with them, right? So that basically means that to change someone in your immediate surroundings or your friend or whatever, and to change someone's reaction or how you interact with them, you really need to first, probably the best way to do it is to change yourself, right? And she puts it very directly, like how like if you want to change the people around you, you need to first change. Because if you change, it will eventually get a different reaction from them, from the usual reaction that you probably don't like and want to change. So you first change, and then that eight figure, that interference thing will make its effect known, and they will start changing as well. So this is legit true. Like I arrived on the same conclusion, but in a like the hard way, I suppose. So basically when I started listening to all this podcast about 3 years back, honestly, I started my self-improvement journey 2 years back seriously, but like around 3 years back, 2.5 years back, a bit before, a few months before I actually started putting it into action, I once you get exposed, obviously, I bet most of you have that experience. When you see something real nice and stuff, you want to share it with everyone everyone you care about, and want them to change, just like you are thinking of changing and stuff. And you get a bit too preachy. I tend to get that, like, like I rant a lot, and most of you probably already know, so I do get preachy. I've been accused of being that by a few of my friends, and I think I do manage it better nowadays. But I tried to do that thing, and it didn't end well, because first thing, I wasn't doing exactly what I was trying to tell everyone else to do, and it ended in a lot. To be fair to myself, I guess, to the past myself, I was not saying something extreme. I was talking about, even then I had the basic awareness that you need to start small and start where you can. And I did tell only stuff like that is very easily doable, and I was trying to do it at the same time. And I was telling them, maybe you should change that about yourself or our relationship or something like that, with mostly with my family and stuff. Because I wanted to first work out my immediate surroundings, my immediate family, and then friends, and that's how I wanted to go. So yeah, it didn't end well, because most of the time it would end in some quarrel or whatever, because we had differing opinions. And most of the people in my family have very strong opinions, like so strong personalities, and it does. I'm stubborn as well, even though I'm the most mellow, like even tempered, like, but yeah. So basically, it wasn't, working out, and then I ended up having lots of just like useless arguments and stuff. And then at some point, like after having it happen to me 3 or 4 times, I realized, you know what, I'm kind of wasting my time. I'm ruining my mood. At the same time, I'm ruining their mood. And the worst part was like it wasn't making any difference, right? In fact, I was actually ruining myself because of the arguments, constant arguments I had with a few of my family members. And like, yeah, it just put me in a spiteful, grudging mood, which I'm usually not. I tend to forget moods by the time I fall asleep and wake up. But yeah, because it was so consistent, and I was being serious about trying to change myself as well. So yeah, it did bother me, and I realized, you know what, this is just breeding negativity, and I'm doing that to myself. And I realized, you know what, before I, share this shit to everyone, plus also while arguing those stuff, how many of my own faults were being pointed out, and it hurt. Like, when you're arguing, some of the shit people say to you, they are very damaging, and some of them do hit close to home. So in my case, it did, and I realized, you know what, after everything cooled down, and I was thinking to myself later in my bed and all, I realized, you know what, like, yeah, what they said is probably true. Like, they did make a good, decent point, I guess, stuff like that. So yeah, so there were moments like that, and I started to, let's first try change myself. Let's start putting all this, I also, by the way, I have a diary, like not a diary, it's like a Google Keep. In my Google Keep, I make different folders, and like code of relationships, code of vitality, code of health, code of the grind, code of fitness, all this stuff, different like areas of life. I made different codes for it. And then the good stuff I hear in podcasts, which I kind of find meaningful to myself, and which I find interesting or something I can relate to and I respect. Words like that I hear, I record it there, depending on the category it is related. So like I started making those, and then I started actually putting it into practice. Many of the stuff I heard, and many of the the logic and thoughts I got, right? So yeah, so once I started working on myself and stopped like bothering the people around me to change and stuff, and rather I used that time to like really start working on myself, chopping my ego down, chopping my lies down and everything. I started doing that, and it like when I started to change, like I actually got feedback, like not openly, because people, I guess, if I were in their shoes, it would probably be hard for me to say it openly as well. So I don't blame them, but like I got feedback indirectly from the people around me that, I'm a better person, that's the feedback I got indirectly and stuff through like conversations and stuff, that kind of like indirectly. No one told me directly that, you're a better person. Maybe someday they will, when the change is too drastic, maybe, or maybe they do say it behind my back, I don't know, but not, at least not to my face. No one has said it yet, but yeah. So like, I mean, my parents, they have said it, like not like, there's like, we can see that you're trying, so that's a step forward as well. So basically, when I started to change, many of the things I wanted to change, the dynamics, it actually changed by itself, which was amazing. Like, yeah, many of the things I had arguments about with the people around me. Some of the stuff I wanted to actually talk it out with them to change, and to do the whole negotiating about like things I usually get into arguments with, or I have issues with and stuff like that, which bothered me. It actually worked. Many of them got worked out just naturally after I started to work on my own issues, right? Because it probably was like Esther Perel, she pointed out, it's like an 8-figure thing. So like if you start to really change yourself first, uh, the the when you change your action and behavior and words first, the reaction you get from the other person is also different, because they have to they kind of like, if you scream at someone, most likely they will scream back at you, right? So but if you say it nicely, it would be rare for them to scream back at you. You know, when you're giving them a nice smile and your tone is like not aggressive, you know, your tone is like more of, I don't know, asking out of curiosity, or your tone is more about inquiry rather than you just ordering them to say what you want to know and stuff like this. So that's an example. So like it does dictate, you know, and I've noticed that with myself as well, when often like, you know, especially with my parents, that's what I noticed, like some nagging issues which usually would get heated up between us, you know, like when they like are in a bad mood, you know, after they come back for work or whatever, and they had, I don't know, they had arguments among each other, whatever, and they like, you know, like are in a bad mood, and they, you know, that they're in a bad mood, you notice that in their tone, and they're just like, you know, saying you, asking you to do something or whatever, nagging you about something, and then I think to myself, you know, I guess they're in a bad mood, and then instead of like saying it the usual reactive mode of like when they say it aggressively and in a very nagging, annoying way, I just react automatically in like a very, you know, defensive manner. I instead, rather than doing how I would usually have done in the past, I actually stopped myself and then changed my tone and put it nicely, right? My reply was nice, it wasn't defensive, you know, like, and it wasn't dismissive, but like in a very like more politer way, like in the nicest way I can use my tone of voice as well, and just my body language. I try to, I'm no actor, you know, so my body language is, I have no idea how it appears to people. I barely started recording just like a month back now, so you know, I haven't seen too much of my own self in a video and really notice how my body language is, but I'm conscious enough to know, at least to you know, because I can hear my own voice, so I know what I sound like, at least to myself. So I try to be as nice as possible in my replying. I try to keep my tone controlled and soft. And what I noticed was like just the same points of, you know, at some point you know what the trigger points are of the people around you, right? So you, how should I put it? So like, you know exactly, if you're self-aware enough, I don't know how it's with other people, honestly. Like, can I call myself unique for this? Maybe. Like, but I have this thing where like when someone is speaking to me, I can kind of detach myself. Like Joko has something, like he says when in a tense situation, he just steps back and detaches himself and looks at it from outsider's perspective. I kind of have that thing as well, because I tend to think a lot, and that's why I procrastinate too much also. But at the same time, it also gives me a benefit where like when I'm speaking to someone, I have all these thoughts running in my head, and then I can kind of like pause my immediate emotions and mood and stuff and really analyze it from a I won't call it completely objective, but it's like analyze it from a lesser, you know, a more
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Why did I trigger Alexa? Anyway, and I can detach myself slightly and like dissect my current thoughts and feelings and why I'm doing or why I'm reacting the way I'm reacting and stuff like that a bit more calmly in my head. And oftentimes, like at least back then, I just didn't feel like doing anything about it. Even though I could do it, I just reacted the way I reacted because I wanted to, right? But now, because I have some amount of discipline, my control is better, and also like I know that like those are the moments, because I've like accidentally done it a few times and realized how effective that is. Like I've learned to like when in a heated conversation with someone, and when I like at the trigger point where I like I can sense it almost, I can almost sense it now, like when I know like if I say one more word, you know, they will flare up, whoever I'm talking to, right? Or it will trigger them, or it will annoy them. I know I can somehow detect that mood. So like once I get to that point, nowadays what I try to do most times, sometimes I just lose control and just say it and start a fight. But like most times, I guess I won't say it most times, it's like 40% of the time, rather than back then when I was not stopping at all. At least it's an improvement, I suppose. So like 40% of the time, I'll just like I'll change my tone. I'll try to gain control of my tone back, and then I don't know about the face, honestly. I probably look like a jerk, you know. For all I know, I'm probably making like a real asshole face. But at least with my tone, like even though I'm angry or I'm annoyed and irritated just the same way as the other person is, I'm speaking to when in a heated situation, I try to control my tone and kind of soften it down, tone it down a bit. At least it's not like, you know, at least it's not provocative. I try to do that, and it every time I've done that, in my experience, it works wonders. So like, you know, that's like what Esther. So like I've noticed that like if I change myself and if I control myself first, the other person's reaction also changes, you know, and especially if they are like, you know, if they are a decent person, obviously, and if they are like, you know, someone who's not completely like completely blown out at that point emotionally, they will usually control themselves back as well, you know. So yeah, so like it does work, and I've come to the conclusion, and I've been working on that as well lately. And when I heard her put it so nicely and clearly, what I myself have realized, it just blew my mind, right? Because, you know, she's an expert, obviously, and like I did come to that conclusion before I heard it from her, but she put it so well and like so convincingly, and so like, you know, her words, like, you guys really should listen to this podcast. It's amazing. Esther Perel on Diary of a CEO. You can probably search it up on YouTube just without Esther Perel Diary of a CEO, and you'll probably find it. So like it's like, yeah, she's gold, man, on this. Like like in my own experience, on my little uneducated practical experience, I suppose, like I highly recommend this podcast. And I'll probably start doing this, right? Talk about podcasts and that, because like even though I started this whole video thing mostly for myself to gain confidence in front of the camera, and also like an outlet and a diary for myself, like it's a very selfish cause, honestly. There's no good cause, no save the world cause, no comfort the people cause, you know, like some great people on YouTube have, but mine is a very selfish one. But if I talk about like, you know, actual stuff I learned from this podcast and stuff in books I read, I do read a lot of books, mostly guilty pleasure fantasy novels, but I do come across a lot of good stuff, you know, things that might benefit someone out there, hopefully. And I'll probably start doing this. I'll talk about podcasts and kind of like write a portion of the title of the podcast as well, or any story or whatever, so you guys can search it up later. I'll probably put it like in quotation marks on the title, or at least somewhere on the title. I'll write it, or on the description if it is too long. But yeah, I'll start talking about this podcast and stuff, and like a review or my thoughts on like that kind of title. And yeah, it's probably would be helpful to someone out there. And this is an amazing podcast. So yeah, that's probably all right. Yeah, it's about, I've already spoken a lot, man. I rant. Anyways, so yeah, she's amazing. The 8-figure points to take, I guess, from my rants, it's like the 8-figure model is legit. I have experienced it myself. If you want to change the people around you, if you want to share good stuff with them, you know, things you learned from this amazing podcast and content available on the internet today, you first need to work on yourself, change yourself first, and try to be very how to put, sympathetic of the people around you, because it's hard to change, honestly. If you really try to change something very weak, a weak side of yourself, you know how hard it was for you to take that step. At least it was for me. It took me like a whole year to try to even start changing, and it took me another year to actually start making the change, right? From like trying and failing and procrastinating for in some skills, like I procrastinated for months and then got back to it and stuff, and I'm still procrastinating on a lot of stuff like music, right now. And yeah, so even now I'm procrastinating, like I'm battling even with running, Japanese learning and all this, like I'm still procrastinating on a constantly, but I'm still not giving up and getting back to it. So if you have been through that phase, you know how hard it is to change. And when you are being, on the preachy mode, remind yourself how hard it was for yourself as well, and be sympathetic to the people around you, and know that it might take them months or even years to change. Like, be understanding. And and I feel the best way is to just avoid doing that initially, like for the first year or two. Like, try to work on yourself first, and then once you have worked to a considerable level, then maybe hint it out slowly, right, without forcing it in, just like, as an afterthought, say it to them during conversations or whatever. Maybe you can try that, or like invite them, like how I did it, like in a very sneaky way, like in my case, how I do it and how I try to influence a bit the people around me is, especially with my wake up thing, is like I realized, the sleep is crucial. Pretty much from every reliable fitness people I've heard about, like exercise, diet and all this stuff, is like sleep is number freaking one when it comes to changing yourself. And if you fix sleep, you're fixing a lot of issues. Like if you fix your sleep time, your bedtime and your wake up time especially, like you are like setting the rhythm for your whole life. Like it's circadian rhythm, which regulates your mood, which regulates your diet, your like, your craving for nutrition, craving for food basically, and your gains with gym and workouts as well. So sleep is number one. It regulates your mood, and mood regulates your relationships and stuff. So everything is dependent on sleep, and it is like the biggest change you can make in your life is if you fix your sleep, which is fucked up in most of us. So like once I realized that, what I do to like, make some positive change, and I've done that. I've experienced doing that in a few people already now. So what I did was do what Jocko did, but how Jocko posts on Instagram, I started doing it on WhatsApp and sharing it with everyone. And how I enticed them into receiving my messages is like, I just put out like, I just told them like, if I miss like my wake up time by like even a minute, it also binded me, by the way, like, but it also is a good way to welcome them into trying it as well someday. At least they'll see the message every day. So that's how I did the trick. So they'll see it, and because they'll see it to keep you accountable. Because if you miss at least in my case, if I miss it one day, I have to give them $300, right? So they are profiting from it, and there's no better incentive than profit, right? So that's benefit, So yeah, that's how I got them. Like, you just need to keep me accountable, and if I miss, you get free lunch money, whatever. So like some change. So it's still free money. So like that's how I did it. And like a few of my friends got back to me, and like some of them even sent back the same pictures back to me, right? Watch pictures when they wake up. And obviously none of them, at least till now, no one has like started the whole, consistent wake up time. But eventually I believe some will. And at least I believe it's not bringing any negative impact on their life. It's at least like when they wake up in the morning, they see me, WhatsApp message, they probably, okay, at least someone is trying out there. And hopefully it does encourage them to make a good change in their own life as well. And yeah, that's basically it. So, like that's how I'm doing it. And that's the only area I'm currently kind of confident, because I've been doing it for close to 2 years without missing my wake up time. I think I missed it just once, and like I think one or few times because of travel and some urgent health issues and stuff. But other than that, I haven't missed it at all. So, yes. So, that's how you guys can probably try it as well. If you really want to change your life and the people around you, maybe start with yourself first. Because honestly, let's be real, it's the easiest way to go about it. Like, you can force people to your will, you can bend them to your will. Even if you can actually bend them to your will, like, it's probably not the right way to go about it, right? You're just, it might not, whatever you're learning might not even be the right thing for them to know, work on. They might probably have a different weakness in their life to work on, unlike you. So yes, start changing by yourself, and just seeing you change and improve, they will get the encouragement and the motivation to do it as well. At least if for the most spiteful people around you, it will rub them the wrong way, and they're like, just to compete with you, they might start to change, right? So like, I have had that happen to me. So yeah, so it's like, yeah. Plus, if you work on yourself, you're not wasting your time on other people, and you're improving yourself first. So you can't give to others what you don't have in your own cup. So if your cup is empty, how the hell would you share a drink with someone else, right? So at least you need your cup full so you can share some of it to someone. So yeah, all right, man. The central message is, if you want to change yourself, if you want to change your surroundings, your circumstances, especially the people around you, you want to help out and stuff, maybe you start with yourself first, right? All right, that's it. Esther Perel, go check her out on that Diary of a CEO podcast. Yep, Diary of a CEO podcast. All right, good night, guys. Also, the Japanese class, that it's a weekend, so that's my excuse. Anyways, it is true. Like, I'm doing it only on the weekdays. So yeah, I'll do that on Monday. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Till then, check out that podcast, because I will right now. All right. Good night.